The destructive nature of Disney could potentially destroy the entire culture. Throughout the 20th century, the Disney company propagandized its audience by creating a world of surface-level entertainment. Disney's prior films have displayed sexism, sexism based on ethnicity, ageism, a lack of political context, and a slavish devotion to the consumer culture. Disney as a global enterprise reaches children in most parts of the world where different cultures exist, and with the massive influence Disney has, it may surprise you that underneath the surface of this behemoth of a company, Disney has a dark motive, a disturbing one in fact. And with the rate that Disney is growing, many cultures are under threat, and it can very well be that if you're not with Disney, then you're against Disney. In other words, you will be annihilated or considered other. Disney is the financial backer of many popular media properties, including the Star Wars series, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Pixar and Touchstone Pictures animated films, the American Broadcasting Company, the lesser-known US cable channels A&E and Lifetime, and the Muppets for some inexplicable reason. And that's far from being an exhaustive list. Aside from its own media outlets, Disney has investments in a number of music and news distribution companies. The point is that this single company owns a wide network of smaller film studios and TV networks that together produce the great majority of America's most pervasive cultural myths. Because of this, its beliefs, ideals, and ideologies are the norm in society. While it's true that the majority of their focus is on the States, that hasn't stopped Brits from enjoying the same shows and movies. Disney is shaping the geography of your mind. Your children's moral development is being influenced by a firm that was caught utilizing sweatshop labor as recently as 2012. The corporate research project details all of their wrongdoing in the past. Disney is more than eager to treat its employees like slaves if it can get away with it. In addition, it underpays its non-sweatshop employees in the West by a significant margin. In the essay Disney Corporation Through the Eyes of a Marxist, one can discover a fascinating description of Disney's wealth and the low wages it pays its employees. Only one firm with an exploitive business model controls the most powerful cultural franchise in the world. All the typical positive characteristics that keep our society running, like friendship, diversity, self-sacrifice, etc., seem to be heavily emphasized in those flicks. But if you look closely, you'll notice that Disney's works conceal many sneaky and self-serving meanings. Think about the antagonist in the movies produced by Marvel Studios. If you're familiar with the movies in question, you might have observed that a surprising number of the villains are driven by resentment against America or the imaginary superhero community. In Captain America: Civil War, the terrorist is perhaps my favorite example because he became evil when American superheroes and villains nearly destroyed his home city in Eastern Europe. According to Broderwood, Disney has distorted children's perceptions of the world by immersing them in a Disney culture that gradually introduces them to the virtuality of Disney's values. The French philosopher Jean Broderwood described hyperreality as the generation of models by a real without origin or reality. It's a go-to for justifying the world of Disney's hyperreality, where commercialism plays a major role. Disney indoctrinates your mind to the point of emotional distancing and a phony facsimile of reality. This leads to the belief that escaping into a computer-generated world or hyperreality is the key to finding fulfillment in life. As a result, Disney is undermining national identity and culture in many areas of the world due to the dissemination of these beliefs to children who are rejecting their cultural heritage in favor of a fake reality. Disney stands to gain from the creation of a worldwide culture, as this will increase the company's potential customer base and hence its profits. Moreover, Disneyland is a prime illustration of how Disney works to stifle cultural expression and give rise to the other. Disneyland environment has been meticulously crafted to invoke the spirit of a spectacular metropolis. Instead, it manufactures an illusion that fools people into thinking it's more real than the outside. For many families, visiting Disney World and immersing themselves in the Disney media is the first step toward a new reality that serves to alienate their young children from their parents. To put it bluntly, Disney World is harmful to cultures because it creates others by subjugating individuals who do not fit in with their society. Disney has since built entire cities on this concept, like Celebration, Florida, where every aspect of the town's design is inspired by Disney culture, bringing the hyper-real into the real to the detriment of culture. This is harmful because Disney fans are likely to develop a naivety about the real world and its problems, such as poverty and war. As the fantastic struggles to materialize, this will occur. By revisiting Broderland's concept of hyperreality, we see the social contact becomes hyperreal when it is reduced to simulacrum, a game of signs devoid of essential significance, in which the experience of the real, in this case war, is lost. The Disney film version of Alice in Wonderland is a perfect illustration of this. Like Disneyland, the world Alice enters is a complete simulation, and as she sets out on her adventures through Wonderland, she encounters signs and symbols that have no overarching significance. There's the judge, because of his wonderful wig. Alice says at the trial's conclusion, "Not everyone in the legal profession wears a wig, but the simulacrum has reduced the wig to a symbol of the system by which problems in the actual world are settled." If Disney is successful in convincing a whole generation of kids to abandon their national and cultural identities in favor of Disney's values, they will have achieved their aim of dominance. Many modern states, like the Baltic states, may trace their modern identities back to the formation of their respective nations in geographically distinct areas. As a result, globalization has led to a shift in which businesses like Disney are able to propagate their ideology across borders instead of governments protecting and promoting local cultures. Disney, according to market liberals, brings the best of many cultures together. But what is reinforced is a highly Americanized culture, driven by the market to meet the need of a pluralistic society. Sad examined Gramsci's idea on hegemony to better comprehend the all-pervasive other, as well as Western cultural constructions and their connection to the use of power. It might be argued that Disney is hegemonic in that it is spreading its values over the globe, and that this is leading to an increase in people's sense of otherness toward cultures other than their own, by virtue of Disney's portrayal of such cultures in a bad light. When viewed through the lens of Marxism, Disney represents the bourgeoisie while its customers represent the proletariat. The company uses its position as the owner of a major film studio as a tool for cultural dominance. Disney's usage of princesses in movies again and over again exerts an ideological grip over parents and their daughters. Disney may try to paint this as helpful to audiences, but in reality, it only serves to further Disneyfy the next generation. Women are commonly seen as second-class citizens in a lot of cultures. Disney continues to make movies that perpetuate harmful gender stereotypes and set artificially rigid gender norms for both sexes. Snow White is the most known example of this. It's possible to read Snow White's role as submissive, given that she does her share of chores and cleaning throughout the film. She dreams of being swept off her feet by a handsome prince and living a life of servitude to a wealthy royal. The bulk of Disney movies with female protagonists share this common thread. The Little Mermaid's Ariel uses her amorous hopes to further her goals. For the sake of having human legs, she gives up her mermaid voice and other identifying qualities. According to an article by Kathy Mayo published in New Internationalists, we are offered a female protagonist who is physically silenced by her frantic need for male approval. Ariel, too, sacrifices her life under the water with her family so that they can go to dry land. Because it portrays women as passive objects to be used and abandoned by men, this film is especially destructive to societies where it is shown because it encourages young women to give up their families in favor of a man. Disney is making a symbol out of the importance of family in many Asian and even some European cultures. Most villains in Disney movies are middle-aged or older. That many of them perpetuate outdated and inaccurate beliefs about the elderly is a major problem. The majority of characters 55 and over are portrayed positively, but the minority of characters portrayed badly are so unique that they send the wrong message to children. Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians and Ursula from The Little Mermaid are both presented as terrifying dog killers, while Snow White's evil stepmother is shown to be both powerful and nasty. Typical depictions of the elderly, according to research from Brigham Young University, include presenting them as toothless, slumped, and with cracking voices. Two of Snow White's dwarfs, Dopey and Grumpy, are named after negative archetypes, even in societies where the elderly are held in high regard. Negative stereotypes about them can permeate popular culture and cause younger generations to view them with contempt. Pocahontas is the most egregious example of Disney removing political context from a film. Slaved, coerced into Christianity and shipped off to England to hawk the Virginia colony. The real Pocahontas was a victim of colonialism. While it's true that Pocahontas did pass away in England, the Disney version completely flips the narrative by turning her story into yet another film that attacks hegemonic whiteness. Disney ends the film with peace between the natives and the colonialists, and Pocahontas even marries a colonialist and lives happily ever after, all in an effort to downplay the mass genocide of a culture and its people. Pocahontas also fits into the subservient white Christian woman role that Disney popularizes. Disney's neocolonialism affects the cultures of Asia and Africa by establishing otherness through Disney's removal of political context from their eponymous language in order to better strengthen themselves in these countries. Since the studio's foundation in 1938, several Disney movies have dealt with racial and ethnic stereotypes. In Peter Pan, Indians are consistently referred to as Reds, while in The Jungle Book, African Americans portrayed the orangutans and monkeys while white Americans provided the voices for the other characters. These movies are from a bygone era when portrayals of minorities in media were more broadly accepted. But if you want to learn more about how Disney movies use race to create a sense of otherness, you should check out 2009's The Princess and the Frog. The film takes place in Louisiana in 1926 and follows the story of Tiana, an African-American girl whose mother works for the family of a wealthy acquaintance. Additional context concerns arise from the fact that Jim Crow laws enforced racial segregation in Louisiana during the 1920s. In her study, The Representation of Blackness in Walt Disney's The Princess and the Frog, Anna Waterbrook argues that Louisiana featured in the film is depicted as a fictional or even legendary territory in the United States. The lack of racism in 1920s Louisiana makes the town seem unreal. Creole people in modern-day Louisiana are experiencing spatial apartheid, but Disney's creation of a hyper-real Louisiana as an Eden of ethnic otherness in the Disney universe is damaging to the cultural legacy. When Tiana is transformed into a hideous frog on her journey to become a princess, she seeks out a voodoo expert in the hopes of being cured. The intended audience reaction to a Disney film promoting multiculturalism was the exact opposite. Because Tiana spends most of the film disguised as a frog, because the film's prince is white, it has been argued that it sends the message that multicultural love is impossible or that a black man cannot be a prince, both of which are problematic in today's society. Furthermore, the voodoo witch includes African-American symbolism, which may be understood as something being portrayed as eerie and contributing to the image of the visible other. Disney has done cultural damage by generating significant misrepresentations of cultures in their films, authoring anything that doesn't fit into Disney's magic through the development of their own meta-narratives and language, which in turn generates hyper-reality. Additionally, Disney destroys culture by subtly inserting sexism, racism, ageism, and patriarchy into its films, along with fictionalized politics to mask real-life horrors that Disney covers up as all part of the magic, threatening anything that is visible symbol of the other. Disney ultimately pushes a hegemonic ideology upon impressionable children, encouraging them to reject their own cultures as alien, and spreading their ideology into new markets at the expense of culture for financial gain.